Welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Matt Baer. I'm the founder of Q4Launch, and we are excited you guys are along for the ride with us today as we dive into 5 strategies to maximize your peak season. Honestly, it's kind of unbelievable that Memorial Day is less than a week away. This coming Monday is Memorial Day, which for many of us marks the start of summer, which for many of us is the start of our peak season. I know we've got a lot of ski destinations tuning in with us today, and you're blessed to have kind of 2 peak seasons. You got your summer season every year that is beautiful up in the mountains, but you've also got obviously your ski season, which we'd love to come visit you for. But for most of us, peak season is kind of the 10 weeks of summer. So we're going to dive into that, regardless of whether you're a ski destination, a beach destination, an urban destination, or somewhere in between. Everything you're going to learn today applies to your peak season. Now, obviously, this is very timely ahead of what's most of the travel industry's peak season, but you can apply what you learned today to your peak season. Honestly, you can apply many of the things you're going to learn today to any season in which you're trying to drive more business, which is every season, right? So very timely webinar for us to dive into, but something that applies to everything we do and every way we do things from trying to drive more business. So we're excited about the topic. If this is your first time with us, we definitely saw some new names on our registration list, so we're excited you're along for the ride. Welcome, glad that you're here. We do our webinar series as a bi-weekly or every other week webinar series to share what we're learning, share what we're strategizing about with people in the hospitality industry. So Q4Launch as an agency specializes in driving more bookings and revenue for our hospitality customers, exclusively in the lodging side of the hospitality industry, with boutique hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, and small resorts. So it's a little bit about us. We work with customers from Maui to Singapore, just about everywhere in between, represent a very diverse group of customers, both from a website design perspective, but also from an integrated digital marketing perspective. So that's a little bit about us. We're going to have some exciting kind of next step opportunities for you at the end of our webinar today. So definitely stay tuned throughout the course of our webinar for those. Just try to apply what you're learning. Actually, we're going to have 2 next steps, which is different for us. We're going to try something brand new we've never tried before, which we're excited about. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We will also have a Q&A time at the end of our time together. So feel free to use the chat panel as we go throughout the webinar, and then put your questions in there, and we'll dive into those at the end of our time. If you're catching the recording of this, I have a lot of people who follow us on YouTube catch the recording. We're glad that you're listening as well. You can definitely use the email address or phone number there on the screen to get in touch regarding those next steps that we're talking about. They may or may not be available based on when you reach out to us, but happy to help if we can. If not, we'll definitely get you some other information and resources. So with that, with all of our housekeeping behind us, and with everybody who is arriving 3 minutes late here, let's dive into our topic at hand, 5 strategies to maximize your peak season. So first of all, I want to set the scene a little bit. And this is comes a little bit from some misconceptions I think people have, and that's this assumption that you're going to have a great peak season. We often hear, the number one objection I would say we hear is, well, I don't need help marketing during peak season. And I would say that's absolutely not true. One, because I've never seen a company get the absolute most out of peak season that they can, maximize it to its fullest extent that they can. And you might be like, well, I'm sold out. I sell out every peak season. And you think you're the exception to that. You're not the exception to that. If you sell out every season, you're by definition not the exception, because you've left money on the table surely by the fact that you sold out every season. Not saying selling out is the enemy, but it likely means you underpriced yourself. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today with some of our time together. But there are so many other ways that we're going to look at and unpack today on how to make sure you have the best peak season. And honestly, marketing in peak season, it kind of falls in a couple buckets. We're going to talk about some last minute marketing you need to do in peak season to fill holes in your calendars or holes with some of your properties that need attention. But we're also going to talk less about, but you also need to think about marketing during peak season that's going to set up your fall. So we're not going to talk about that one as much, but that's something you need to be working on, because filling peak season is not necessarily a peak season job. Hopefully your peak season is 90, 95, 99% full heading into this point. You're just trying to fill in some little gaps here and there, but you also need to turn your attention to fall. So a couple ways to think about that to make the most of it. And then also, how do we make the most of this influx of guests we have? You're going to have an influx of guests in the next 3 months like no other time of year in your destination. And you need to think about how to leverage that. We're going to share some ideas for you. But some things we know to be true, and it varies quite a bit. Some of our customers don't have a peak season. Some of our customers are in 12-month destinations. Every month is very consistent from a revenue perspective, and they're blessed to have a solid 12-month, 11-month, 10-month season. Some of our customers literally have a 10-week season, and you can do anything you want marketing-wise, and they hardly get any revenue into their seasons, and they get almost 100% of their revenue in these 10 weeks. But for most people, probably 50 to 75% of total revenue for the year comes in what would be determined as your peak season, which for many of you is the next 10 weeks. We talked about if you're sold out last year, you likely underpriced yourself. This is one of the most important times to make sure you're having a great fall. We talked about that as well, and just really unpacking a few things to position yourself well to have a great fall, and how to use this influx of guests to set up your next bookings in the fall. And then all the things we talked about today, and this is so true, and you'll hear this woven into a few of our different points, but you need to understand the complexity of your business and adjust your marketing sophistication accordingly. Meaning, we've done work for everybody from 3-room bed and breakfast to 4,000 unit vacation rental companies, and probably some larger companies in the mix there as well. But in the recommendations we're going to give today, honestly, we have both those people probably on today's webinar. We usually do. We usually have companies with up to 2,000 employees or more joining our webinars, and we have companies with 1 employee joining our webinar. So many of the things, the subjects, the topics, the tips we're going to give you today, you need to unpack that and understand your own business and say, okay, how does this apply to me? Because we share tips that apply to everybody in our audience. And what applies to the 2,000 person company doesn't necessarily apply to the 1-person company, or maybe it applies if it's different. So you need to understand your own complexity and think about how to adjust the sophistication of your strategy accordingly as you unpack some of these different strategies and start putting them to work in your own business. So let's dive into our 5 tips. Number 1, track and manage your PACE report. We teach a lot on revenue management and what that looks like. And it's one of my favorite subjects to teach on because it's one of the places I get to geek out the most and talk about data and numbers and everything else, which if y'all been with us before, I'm just a real data geek at my core that has the ability to speak really fast and loudly. So people tend to follow our webinars. But at the core, we're data geeks. And I love the topic of PACE reports, revenue management, pricing, everything we do, but so much ties into data. And being able to help our customers and you, our followers of our webinar series and blog, make data-driven marketing decisions. And your PACE report is one of your number 1 tools to be able to make data-driven marketing decisions. It's also the number 1 indicator at this point in the game, the number 1 indicator of what your peak season looks like. What does Memorial Day through Labor Day look like for you? What does the 10 weeks of summer look like for you? Your PACE report can answer that question for you. And more property management softwares are getting better and better about having really usable, great reporting inside of them that make PACE reports a realistic thing. Now, it's not in every PMS yet. I wish it was. We've worked with many PMSs to try to get it in there and help them understand the importance of it and how to do that and how to maybe improve some reports they already have. The data already exists inside there. They just have to build a report that makes it usable for you. But a PACE report, by definition, is going to help you look at your booking pace for a period of time in the future. So most of our customers, when they start with us, talk about revenue, right? And revenue is a backward-looking piece of data. Revenue says, how much revenue did we earn last year? And it's something that looks backwards. Now, we work with our customers to look at booking reports and say, we don't necessarily care what happened last month. That's over. It's behind us. Yes, we need to use that information to influence future marketing decisions, of course, but we're not necessarily as concerned about what's in the past. We're more focused on what's in the future. Now, we get a lot of pushback from people because they're like, no, I need revenue. I need to be reporting on revenue. It's like, no. We're reporting on bookings. Bookings are what we can control. Bookings are what matter. Bookings are forward-looking as opposed to revenue, which is backward-looking. And PACE report's kind of even that next step ahead of that, because you can really get into specific dates and say, how am I looking for June on this day versus last year? How much of my June was booked up on May 22nd, 2017 versus how much of my June is booked up on May 22nd, 2018. So it's your booking pace that you're on. And the same is true for any date in the future. On this day, May 22nd, how much of my July was booked up? How much of my ski season in December through April was booked up by May 22nd, 2017? So you can use a pace report for any period of time, but it's always future looking, which is great, always forward looking. So then we can make decisions now to still have a time to make an impact in the future. And we're working more and more with pace reports. It's a lot more time consuming, so we're doing it with some of our larger, more advanced customers, but we're trying to find scalable ways to reduce the amount of time it takes so that we can bring some of those things down to some of our smaller customers as well. It is really time consuming to do it well, but it's something that drives so much great decision making. At a core level, if you're ahead of pace, you can get more aggressive on pricing and you can reduce promotions. So like at Pace Reports 101, that's your takeaway. So if you're not used to Pace Reports, there's your takeaway. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into how to use them throughout the rest of our time. But if you're ahead of pace, raise price. That's kind of the core of it. If you're behind pace, you need to get more aggressive with marketing and or lower price. If you're behind pace, your supply is exceeding your demand, your price needs to go down. So we have a basic supply and demand chart here on the left-hand side where demand and supply meet at the perfect point. Your price is perfect, your supply is perfect, the demand you have is perfect. That equilibrium point there is the perfect price for that piece at the perfect quantity. So you're seeing all those elements. If demand exceeds supply, you have a shortage, price can go up. If supply exceeds demand, you have a surplus. Don't worry so much about surplus and shortage. For most of you, your inventory is relatively fixed, especially at this point. Like you might pick up some new homes if you're a vacation rental manager, or you might be able to build on some new rooms if you're an innkeeper, or you might be able to put an addition on your hotel if you're a boutique hotel. But for the most part, we're going to assume your inventory, your supply, number of units is fixed. And demand is driven by marketing, right? Or marketing is driven, let me make sure I get that right. Marketing drives demand. Marketing drives demand for your product. Good marketing drives demand for your product. The better your marketing is, the better your branding is, the better your product is, the higher your price is going to go as demand increases with it. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And pace is an indicator of where all this is coming together. Is my demand soft, so my pace is behind? Really, really important concept to hone in on. Honestly, probably should teach an hour-long webinar just on supply and demand and pace within the hospitality industry and how to use that to influence data. But hopefully, and it's important that you understand where we're at right now, because that's going to set kind of the groundwork for a lot of things we talk about as we move throughout. And it's honestly going to set the decisions you need to be making. If you're behind pace, the decisions and the things you need to be doing are very, very different than someone who is at pace, meaning you're dead even with last year, or ahead of pace. Obviously, we all want to be ahead of pace, right? That's the position of power. That's the position to make aggressive decisions and get excited about being there. But if you're behind pace, you need to probably make some adjustments as well, and they're probably a little bit more critical to making sure you have a great peak season. The great news is it's not too late. No matter where you are, whether you're sitting here listening to this live or you're listening to a recording, maybe you're in the middle of your peak season and you found this webinar or found the recording because you're struggling in your peak season in ways you didn't think you would, it's not too late. It's never too late to take action and start making tomorrow better than today. We believe that wholeheartedly. We had a customer talk to us this week about a project they had previously put off, and they were like, I just think it's too late to do this project. And I was like, honestly, it's never too late. Like, yes, it would have been better had we done this project 6 months ago, but now is the best time. Like, yes, I wish you would have said yes 6 months ago and we said, hey, we should really do this project, but now is a better time than never. Now is a better time than never. And that's something I think a lot of us probably need to embrace and step into. There's no time like the present. There's endless sayings around that topic, but really embrace that. Number 2, use pay-per-click effectively. And this is number 2. It's an important thing because honestly, it's one of the quickest ways to turn on results and turn on bookings. Now we're going to unpack it a little bit. I'm not going to dive deep into it. We're going to dive deep into some other things, but it's a quick way to be able to drive demand, right? I mean, that's what pay-per-click is doing. We're essentially buying demand. Google has driven demand through their search engine and being the behemoth that they are, and they're willing to sell some of that demand to you by pay-per-click. It's essentially what's happening. And one of the quickest ways you can buy demand is using pay-per-click. So if you're in that place where maybe you're behind pace right now, looking at peak season starting on Monday, or you're in the middle of peak season and you're struggling and you're behind pace, use pay-per-click effectively. It can be a great way to do that. But be very careful, because I saw a recent statistic from one of the largest pay-per-click management software companies in the United States. I believe they go worldwide, but they're headquartered in the U.S. And they said from their data, across all the people who use their software, 40% of pay-per-click budgets are wasted. And I'll tell you, I've been doing marketing a long time, and I've seen a lot of things, and we do marketing in a lot of different mediums as far as pay-per-click, SEO, email marketing. Done a lot of analytics analysis for people, and I've never seen people throw so much money and waste so much of it at any other medium other than pay-per-click. It kind of blows my mind, and that's not just people that are doing it on their own. I'd say you're more susceptible to that if you do it on your own, or maybe try to use AdWords Express or something like that. But that's even people with agencies that are just blowing pay-per-click budgets. And I would say, from what I've seen, that statistic published by a company called WordStream is a true statistic, that 40%, and again, I believe that stat's right, I remember reading it, but 40% of pay-per-click budgets are wasted. So understand your pay-per-click budget and match your management complexity accordingly. So if your pay-per-click budget is $1,000 a month, it needs to be managed very differently than if your pay-per-click budget is $10,000 or $100,000 or $1 million a month. And yes, there's a lot of people with 7-figure pay-per-click budgets. I know that number seems crazy probably for most of us, and 6-figure and 5-figure monthly pay-per-click budgets. But understand your management complexity and adjust it accordingly. You don't want to spend 5 hours a month managing a $200 a month pay-per-click campaign. It's just not an effective use of your time. But if pay-per-click is an important part of your strategy, you really need to understand it and adjust your complexity accordingly. One of the great ways to do that is also base your pay-per-click spend off booking reports. Most of us look at our budgets and say, okay, I'm going to budget $1,000 a month or $5,000 a month for pay-per-click. And they just set that budget and it's the same every month. But as you get a little bit more aggressive, now if you're spending less than $1,000, you probably don't need to do this. But if you're spending more than $1,000, you may look at your pay-per-click budget and match your budget allocation to your booking window reports. So for example, let's say that you get 30% of your bookings in January. So instead of making 1/12 of your budget allocated to January, maybe 30% of your budget should be allocated to January, because that's when 30% of your bookings come in. So important things to be thinking about there. You can also use your pace reports as part of your pay-per-click management. If you're behind pace, might be an indicator you need to increase budget. If you're ahead of pace, might be an indicator you can decrease your pay-per-click spend. Or on the flip side, supply and demand, right? Demand is what we're buying with pay-per-click. So if demand is high, it gives us an opportunity to raise our prices. So we might keep our pay-per-click budget where it is and raise our prices instead. Or you might toy with a couple of those different changes and be able to massage that to really make it work for you. But you really need to understand it and manage it closely. Don't set it and forget it. Set it and forget it is the thing we see happen most often with pay-per-click budgets. And honestly, I think Google kind of wants you to set it and forget it. They make it really easy for you to set it and forget it. But you can blow a lot of money and be a part of that 40% statistic if you set it and forget it with your pay-per-click strategy. Regardless of whether it is an important part of your strategy or you're spending thousands or you're spending hundreds, if it's going to be a part of your strategy, meaning you're going to get 5%, 10%, 50% of your bookings from it, I would advise you to test it in a season where it's not crazy busy, and test it in a season where you don't have to have it performing. Because pay-per-click takes some time to tweak and adjust and really hone in. There are so many factors to a successful pay-per-click campaign. While you can turn it on and start seeing traffic and start seeing bookings overnight, a much more effective campaign that produces a higher return on ad spend is going to be a campaign that has had at least 30 days of testing and tweaking done on it, but more likely probably even significantly longer than that. So as it's kind of too late to do that much testing ahead of peak season if you haven't. But one of the great things you can do is test it in a season that you're not as desperate for it to perform, and then get through those tweaks, get it to a point where it's performing really well. Typically we measure performance by conversion. There's some other behavior indicators as well of quality when it comes to pay-per-click campaigns. But the number one way is conversion. But get it to where it's performing really, really well. So then if heading into peak season you're behind pace and you need to turn it on, you know it's going to perform for you, or you're really confident it's going to perform for you, as opposed to getting into peak season and then feeling like you got to turn it on and figure it all out, and you're behind the 8 ball at that point. That's not a good place to be. So whether you need it in this season or not, having campaigns created that are paused that you know work well is a really good place to be. I talk about being in that position of power. That's part of that, being able to say, I know I've got this tool in my pocket if I need it. I know I've got this hammer in my pocket if I need it. But if I don't, and I've got to go to the store and buy a hammer and then come back, it may be too late for whatever I needed that for. So it's kind of what we're talking about. Just make sure you've got your tool, make sure it's tested, make sure it's working. Then if you need it, you're ready to go. If you don't, awesome, more power to you. Number 3, use guest lifecycles to increase revenue. And we talk about this within like a software perspective, and there is marketing automation software you can use to do life cycles well, and we encourage people to do that, and that's great. But there are so many other things you can do with guest life cycles that aren't just marketing automation. They're not just software. They're not just email. Really understanding guest life cycles is an absolutely critical part of a business's ability to do marketing well. We've talked a lot about the 5 stages of travel: dreaming, planning, booking, experiencing. And we've encouraged you to really think about those things and adopt that common language with your team. At Q4 Launch, we use that language with our staff all the time, and many conversations are framed around the 5 stages of travel. This is one of those things that I would encourage you to really think about with your team members and brainstorm and understand and have this common language and understand the process somebody goes through from the point that they start searching for you or searching for accommodation to the point that they book, the point that they're actually on property, and then the point that you might win them back. So there's a lot that goes on in that journey, and it's kind of a breakdown of it right here, but there's a much deeper, more granular breakdown you can go into to really understand the full journey your customer goes through, that life cycle of that customer. And as you do that and you talk it out, I would encourage you to, if you've got an office with a whiteboard, really map that out with your team and talk about that. Talk about that guest. And if you can build personas around those guests, talk about their needs and their pain points, give them a name. That's awesome. That will just help you be that much more effective. But think about, how can I become a master of the upsell and the cross-sell? The upsell probably in a lot of ways is more relevant for our hotels and our B&Bs with us today. But the cross-sell can be very relevant for vacation rentals as well. Thinking about other things, other revenue opportunities we can do to create revenue with our guests. And as you're talking and training those things with your team, you're going to generate more and more ideas. But we wanted to share a few ideas with you today to kind of get you thinking about this. So it's one of the ways that this influx of guests that you're going to get for peak season can help you set up fall and future seasons. One of the ways you can do that really, really well. So thinking about this huge rush of guests you get, they're all paying peak season rates, all those things. How can I market to those people in peak season to ensure that come fall, I'm helping those people to fill up my fall? I'm positioning my properties to fill up the fall with these guests coming in now. Don't just wait for fall and do fall marketing. Position fall to the guests while they're on property with you. There's so many opportunities to do that and help you start setting up your fall for success, or your winter for success, or next summer for success. Like thinking about the future and how to use this moment in time you have, that's a special moment in time where you have more guests than you'll probably see all year, to really start setting up your future seasons. So here's a few things to think about, a few different parts of that. Pre-arrival, think about experiences, right? I mean, the many, many destinations, especially big tourist destinations, you can make ancillary income selling experiences, whether that's kind of through the concierge style. Most of those people will pay anywhere from 10 to 20% if you sell their experience. Which is great. And a lot of people make a significant amount of money selling those experiences. So think about, how do I do that pre-arrival? How do I position those experiences? Room upgrades, great pre-arrival time. Hey, you're slated to come in, but we have this upgrade available for $50 a night. The cost of servicing a guest isn't really any higher based on what room they choose. Just because they're in a larger room with more square footage, you don't really have, it doesn't cost more. Now, that one doesn't work as well for our vacation rentals because that purchasing decision is a lot more complicated, but there are certain ways it might work for you. If you have a lot of condo inventory or something like that, it might work for you to be able to do those type of things or position that. So I wouldn't just discount it if you're a vacation rental. I'd say, how do I think about that a little differently and apply that to my business as well? And then on property, once they're on property or they're on in location, what does that life cycle look like? A satisfaction check-in. Is everything going well? How are things going? Which you're setting yourself up there for loyalty, and you're setting yourself up there for a review. And then experiences again, right? On property is when a lot of people actually wait till they're on vacation or in your destination to book those experiences. So I definitely encourage you to follow up there with life cycles. And then extend your stay. That's a great way. Again, probably more of a hotel or B&B strategy, but extend your stay. You're having such a great time with us. Would you be interested in extending your stay? And some of this can be automated through marketing automation and lifecycle campaigns that can run there. Some of it can't be, depending on what technology stack you have and various other things. But training your staff, even maybe you're a B&B or you're a hotel that offers a breakfast, and training your staff to be able to, either talk to guests at breakfast, or training your housekeeping people to slipping and extend your stay offer in while they're on cleaning. Or maybe that's if you do a night audit, if you're still in the place that you're doing a night audit, maybe your night audit person is figuring out what guests qualify for an extend your stay, meaning that the room that they're already in is going to be empty the night that they're checking out. And look at that. Your success rate on those is going to probably be pretty low, which is why we want to see automation there. Most people make their trips in advance, but sometimes you can pick up those extend your stay opportunities. And that's a great way to do that. Of all the traveling I've done, I've only ever had one extend your stay offer. And it was actually from a Omni property. And they did it through marketing automation. They did a great job of it. Honestly, I wish they'd probably done it a little bit ahead of time, because now I'm in this season where I've got 2 little girls, so it's a little bit harder for my wife and I to get away. But I would have loved to extended that stay. But with overnight babysitters and everything else, makes it a little bit harder in this season. But the point being, I would have taken advantage of that offer, that opportunity. So it was attached to a discounted rate, but I would have taken advantage of that if I could have. Would have been a great opportunity. So they probably could have done it a little better, maybe messaging it a couple times, but there are probably reasons they might not want to as well. So, but that's the only place of all the places I've stayed, that's the only one I've ever seen actually do an extend your stay offer. Departure. What does that life cycle look like? Saying thank you for staying with us. That's getting more typical, but honestly not super typical. Most people still don't do it. And then reviewing your stay, asking for that 5-star review, and encouraging people to leave that. This is one of the ways, we're going to dive into a little bit later, but one of the top ways to leverage peak season to set yourself up for future success. And that's using this to generate great 5-star reviews. The loyalty or the rebook, right? I mean, how do you reactivate that customer? How do you get them to come back? And I think timing here is really, really important. When a vacation is top of mind is the best time to start talking to them about their next vacation. So getting them to rebook. And then the OTA rebook. This is something that's going to become increasingly important in the coming years. And that's guests that you can identify through your property management software, which basically all the OTAs have identifiers, so you know who these people are. But they book through an OTA. How can I send them a book direct offer? One of the things you need to do is make sure you're capturing their real email address at check-in. Most of the OTAs don't give you a real email address. They give you a anonymized email address, and most of them, I don't know because I haven't actually checked, but I would imagine probably have policies that say you can't contact the guest after they check out, or you can't solicit future business from them even while they're on property. But of course everybody does anyways. But if you get their real email address, they have no way to police that or control that, which is why they don't give you their real email address. So you need to have a reason to get that at check-in, as opposed to using the OTA provided randomized email address. And then having that rebook offer. We've talked about that in past webinars and given ideas on how to do that, how to message that effectively to generate those bookings. But a great opportunity to take people that are booking through an OTA and get them to rebook direct next time they come with you. Especially important if you're in a repeat traffic kind of destination. If you get a lot of repeat guests, really, really important part of your marketing strategy that can be automated and doesn't require a lot of work on your part, or you can do it manually. If you're a smaller property, you can still definitely do it manually and create some value there. Number 4, and I hinted to this one a little bit, but leverage the influx of guests to get great engagement and reviews. And there's a couple different ways we want to talk about doing this. One, and I just mentioned this, but make sure you're gathering emails at check-in. If they're from the EU, make sure you have explicit opt-in consent per the newest GDPR regulations that are going into effect this week. If you want to know a little bit more information about that, you can Google it. There's a massive amount of resources out there. You can also check out our blog. We wrote a brief blog about it, didn't dive into it super in depth, but wrote a brief blog about kind of our plan with GDPR, so you can check that out. Overall, I would say that's being way overhyped, and I don't want to answer GDPR questions on today's webinar. It's being way overhyped, in my opinion, but it is an important thing to pay attention to. So read that blog if you're interested, or if you're one of our customers, you've already got information from us about it. If you missed that email from us, get in touch with us. We'll be happy to get that to you. But make sure you have explicit consent at check-in and that you can prove that consent. One of the things they're trying to protect against here is people that just gave you an email address at check-in but didn't opt in to receive email marketing. So you need to get explicit consent on that, either through having them if you're using old school like paper, like pen and paper, having them check off a box, or if you're using digital means of that, having them opt in to receive future email campaigns. You can no longer allow them to opt out, meaning that box can't be checked by default. They want to receive email from you. So you've got to do that, gather it, and get the explicit opt-in consent. Drive social media engagement with summer contests, scavenger hunts, or tag a friend campaigns. We've done some very successful things with tag a friend campaigns. We're showing an example of one of our customers' sandcastle contest. So this isn't something we came up with. This is their own invention, but I love it, so I wanted to share it. And they do a sandcastle contest. It's a vacational company based on the beach, of course. And once a week through the 10 weeks of summer, they do a sandcastle contest. And they get some incredible entries. One of my favorite things to do is watch the entries they get come up in my news feed. But it's great. It gets people engaging. I'm sure these people are posting their own pictures of their sandcastles on social media. Hopefully they're tagging them. Be great to have some branded swag in these photos as well. So some opportunities to improve that, be that buckets or umbrellas or t-shirts or whatever, having some branded swag to kind of leverage these images here. But drive social media engagement. Get people talking about you on social media. With this influx of travelers, get people talking about you on social media. That will put your brand, your message, your properties in front of like-minded consumers. Scavenger hunts around your destination are a great way to do that. Tag a friend campaigns are a great way to do that. We talked about this as well, but get more 5-star reviews. Get people to leave great quality reviews. Google and Guest are reading your reviews like you can't believe. We've seen a lot of our vacational companies that use our 5-star product report an increase in owner inquiries, which is an unintended consequence in a great way of 5-star. You know, we wanted 5-star to work to drive more 5-star reviews for our customers, and it has. One of the things our vacational managers have told us is I'm getting more owners calling me and telling me they're reading all of our great reviews on Google, which is awesome. But we know Google is in some way determining a ranking based on the quality of and consistency of those reviews. But you need a way to be able to gather those. So check out 5-star as an app that can help you do that, and its marketing automation can help you get more 5-star reviews. So you can look at it, or you can go to our website, q4launch.com/5-star, to be able to learn a little bit more about that app. Really inexpensive, but great way to drive more reviews and leverage the travelers you have coming in this peak season to be able to do that. So a really important part of your strategy, leverage the influx of guests to get great engagement and reviews. Make sure you're gathering email addresses, think about social media and how to engage them, and then get more 5-star reviews from guests in this season as well. All right, number 5, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into here. So we're going to spend a little bit more time on this one. And that's to have a last-minute marketing strategy in place. So what we would say is you need to have a pre-built strategy and be ready to implement it. So you need to have many of these things planned and ready to go before you implement them. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into each of these and share some ideas, some real screenshots on how to do these effectively. We would say be multi-pronged based on your availability. So based on availability, you're going to approach these things a little bit differently. And we're going to share some different thoughts on how to approach different gaps that you might have and be able to do that effectively. But be multi-pronged, or I probably should have said be integrated based on your availability. And using integrated marketing to do this effectively. Now, a lot of what we're going to talk about here is honestly quite a bit more time consuming than regular marketing is, but it can be very, very powerful when it's done. So it may not be part of your traditional marketing rhythm. Like we have a traditional marketing rhythm with many of our customers. What we're talking about here is kind of doing a push on top of that traditional marketing rhythm. Here's our baseline. Here's what we're doing. On top of that, we're going to push extra hard on these extra things to fill in these gaps that we might see. So it's additional time on top of marketing that you're probably already doing to try to be effective. And let's dive into that a little bit. So social media, we're going to talk about that. Email marketing, this is one that you especially need to have set up in advance. Really important piece there. Website banners or pop-ups. You got to make sure your website has the technology to be able to do that in advance. If you wait till you need it to go live to ask the question of your web developer, might be too late at that point. So again, like I talked about with pay-per-click, make sure you have your campaigns tested and approved and those things. I would have some of those things already kind of queued up and they're ready to go. Know how this technology works for you. And then outbound calls. No one does this anymore, but it's very effective. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some strategies to do that. You also need to know what last minute is for you based on booking window reports. So we talked about booking pace reports quite a bit earlier on in our webinar, but booking window reports are also important. If you're a B&B or a boutique hotel, your booking window reports probably don't vary a ton. They'll vary a little bit by season, but they probably don't vary a ton by unit because your units are pretty similar. If you're a vacation rental company, booking window reports can vary quite a bit, meaning that the larger the property, typically the further in advance that they book. Booking window reports also change quite a bit as consumer behavior changes. So most every PMS probably has booking window reports built into it. So the good news is the data is there, but you need to understand it so you know what last minute means for you. Last minute may not be this weekend, right? I mean, it is for some of us. Last minute might be this weekend. It definitely is. But if you have a 10-bedroom motion for a home, last minute might be 10 weeks out. You know, it doesn't seem last minute. That reservation's 10 weeks away. But if it usually books 4 to 6 months in advance, 10 weeks out is last minute. And you need to be thinking about that. You're probably not going to book a 10-bedroom vacation rental 3 days before. And you just got to think about the consumer and the buying behavior. If I'm booking a 10-bedroom oceanfront vacation rental, I can't rally that many people at the last minute to go take a vacation. If you're on our millennial marketing panel, or if you're on the webinar where we did our millennial marketing panel a few weeks ago, we talked about millennials and how they're taking larger last minute trips than generations have before. So they're a little bit of an exception, but even then, you just really got to think about that and understand who you're marketing to, what the unit's like, and how you're going to do that effectively, and understanding the definition of last minute. So we've got a screenshot here of kind of an availability calendar, which is just kind of a fragment of an availability calendar from one of our customers for this summer. But I wanted to talk about a few things here as we look at different strategies. I wish I had this screenshot on every slide, but I don't. But up at the top, you can see we've got like some decent sized gaps, right? I mean, we've got some 3, 4, 2-night stays. The way I'm going to approach those 2-night stays is very different from a last minute booking perspective than the way I'm going to approach these 1-night holes. So like you see several 1-night holes in my calendar, especially on the bottom half of that calendar. 1-night holes are traditionally really hard for us to fill as an industry. Now talking to my boutique hotels, B&Bs here, those 1-night holes are really hard to fill. For vacation rentals, you may not want to fill them at all just because of the cost of turning a unit over and everything else may not be realistic for you. But for a boutique hotel or a B&B, definitely realistic. And how you approach those in your calendar is going to be a little bit different. So that's where understanding the unit type, the booking window that you have, what last minute means, and all this comes together and approaching your strategy a little bit differently. So we're going to unpack some of this here as we move along. So let's talk about social media first. One of the great ways we've seen to create a compelling or to drive last minute bookings via social media is to create a compelling post showcasing the property or the room and boost it to the drive market, which we kind of, drive market's a term. We usually define that as about a 2 to 3 hour radius around your property or destination. So you can see an example over here on the left, which is a B&B boutique hotel we work with called Cameo Heights Mansion. Beautiful, beautiful place. And they do a phenomenal job with their own last minute marketing on top of the traditional marketing rhythm that we're doing for them, but have great success. And you can't read this post. Actually, I'll zoom in on it here. We probably would have written the language a little bit differently. Definitely would have written the language a little bit differently. But its bottom line is it's very effective. So I wouldn't discount the way it's written, because I know the customer is very, very effective for them. But essentially what they're doing is they're creating a compelling offer for why you should book this suite. They have a one-night gap for this suite. They're trying to fill that. They know once tomorrow comes, the inventory is spoiled. So they posted this the day of their opening, so very last minute, as is for tonight, and put a very compelling offer out, gave people kind of that reason to come, that relaxation, really showing that off. And then put a call now to book. Now, we would encourage people to either call now or be able to book it online with a promo code. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But in this case, call now. They reached almost 4,000 people with that post. 3,996 people were reached with that post. 52 people kind of liked it, loved it, or wowed it. This is a way that Facebook measures that engagement. And 625 people clicked on it, which is awesome. So tons of engagement on that post. 4,000 people reached. Great opportunity to be able to a way to book a room. And that's a great way to fill those one-night bookings that we talked about to your local market. So they boosted that to a 25-mile radius around their property. People that could drop everything and come tonight for this type of stay. On the right-hand side here, we have Your Friend at the Beach, which is another, it's a vacational company of ours. And they do a great job. It's a little bit less, this post may not be quite as sophisticated as the one on the left. For some reason, my computer actually won't let me zoom in on these, so I apologize. That was not planned for this, to zoom in on these. But in this case, they had a last-minute cancellation. Posted pictures of the unit, posted the dates, and said, call us today to book for this week. And then posted a link back to the unit. This could have been a little bit more compelling, right? If they would have put an offer, if they would have put some pricing on it, if they would have put maybe some things going on that week. But in and of itself, it's a good post. It was, I believe that was a spring break week for them. So that's a good opportunity in and of itself. They know there's a lot of demand there. So good opportunity to take advantage of that. So a couple different ways to use social media and then boost that to reach an audience. That's also one of the reasons it's important to be investing in growing your social media following on a consistent basis. All right, email marketing. Sorry, my computer kind of just froze there altogether for a second. Email marketing, another great way to do this. Now, while social media is a great opportunity to kind of fill in like a one-night gap, two-night gaps, email marketing, we probably want to have more available, more inventory available if we're going to do a campaign to really push it in there too. So think about that. Think about how much availability do I have? What am I trying to fill? And then think about what's the best medium to be able to do that. But email is incredibly effective at reaching a large, likely to book audience quickly. But again, you can't just set this up and be up and running in 30 minutes. Like, you need to have created your email marketing campaign. You need to have your software already ready to go. You need to have your list uploaded. You need to have some templates built. You have this ready to go ahead of time. I would, again, say this approach for larger offerings, meaning not one unit for one date range. You can, like, in that case with Nancy there from Your Friend at the Beach, if she's got a large unit available for 1 week, probably justifies it. But in the Cameo Heights example, probably wouldn't use email marketing to sell one night for one room. So think about, like, what am I selling here? What's the inventory value? How much inventory is there before you're thinking about email marketing? Because it goes into the frequency that you're going to be sending. You also don't want to train your email subscribers or your social subscribers to always be on the lookout for a deal. We don't necessarily want to train that behavior. So you kind of have to use these sporadically. And then we talked about outbound calling and how to do that well. But back to that example where I had that grid up on the screen, one of the things we'd be doing, if I had those one-night gaps, I would be emailing people ahead of time and saying, hey, Mr. Joe, I saw that you've got a reservation with us from the 28th through the 30th. We actually have that same suite available for the 31st, and I just wondered if you wanted to extend your stay. Be happy to offer you a, this compelling offer to do that, either $50 off that last night or free dinner in our restaurant that last night of your stay, or whatever, like some compelling offer to get them to extend their stay. By approaching them ahead of time, you're able to get them thinking about it when they can still plan for it. And you could do that with people on either end. You could say extend your stay on the back end, so emailing the person on the who's kind of on the front end of that, or email the person on the other side of that. Say, do you want to extend your stay the other direction? You want to come a day earlier and email them some offer to be able to do that. Now, you can do that through marketing automation. It gets a bit sophisticated. Some of your software might be able to do that, some can't. Essentially, that's what I talked about in that example earlier with the lifecycle campaign, but I specifically said personal email here because in the absence of your software being able to do that, you can do this with personal email. Now, your take rate might be low. Let's say it's 5%. But what that means is 1 out of 20 emails, you're going to get that room booked for that night. Is it worth sending 20 emails to get that room booked? And the beauty of it is you can create some templates either in your email marketing software to still try to use some marketing automation, or create some copy and paste templates within your own personal email to email these people personally. So you can still find ways to speed up this process so you're not literally writing someone an email to be able to do that. Again, the extend your stay, not as relevant for vacation rentals, but this we've got a cancellation or we have these opportunities available, we have these gaps in our schedule, definitely something that you can take advantage of and putting a special offer out. Being able to message into your database. We've actually done quite a bit of work on our future-proof website platform with our vacation rentals to try to help balance out the booking windows, or balance out the times people are booking for. We know these 10 weeks of summer are going to sell out, so we really need to drive some traffic into the weeks on the shoulders of that, because that's a really effective time. And the way we display rates on our future-proof platform is something we've really done to be able to help that. But you can also message that via email marketing and say, hey, we know everybody loves coming in the 10 weeks of summer, but did you know these first 2 weeks of summer, the average temperature is 75, the crowds are smaller, and our rates are actually 10% cheaper or 20% cheaper. So you're not advertising a discount, you're just kind of advertising a discount off the peak season rate, but you're sharing ideas on how to come other times of the year where rates might be a little bit cheaper. So email marketing is a great way to do that, regardless of what type of business that you're running. I'm going to speed up here a little bit, but website banners or pop-ups, great way to do that as well. Make them attention-getting but non-obtrusive, which is why we tend to stray away from pop-ups, actually. So we typically would use website banners to do this. An example of one is here on the screen. Make them easy to use and bookable online. This is one of our customers who uses our future-proof website platform that's integrated with their PMS Escapia, but they also do their marketing with us. And they have this offer live. We have 3 Adagio condos left the week of June 9th, so book yours quickly. Use code SCHOOLSOUT to get 15% off and a bag of beach toys at arrival when you book one of the last Adagio condos. A great opportunity. A couple things we love about this. One, we're messaging it to people who are coming to our website, so they're already on our site. That's awesome. We're getting it out in a non-obtrusive way. This slide's open top of the page when they get there. You can Google them and go and kind of see this. But we're giving them a code to book it online, so we're reducing call volume, and we've got that book now call to action right there. And our system provides all the technology for them to be able to do this. The coupon code, the banner ads that pop, or the not pop up, the banner ads that display there, everything's kind of built into our system to be able to do this effectively. But make it easy to use and bookable online. That's so key. Easy to use and bookable online. People embrace easy to use and bookable online. The harder it is to use, the dramatically lower you'll see your take rate on it, or people actually using that. Again, I talked about outbound calling. I didn't have a slide for it. It kind of connects into that personal email thing I was saying, and really looking at that calendar and saying, okay, how can I fill these one-night gaps that I have? And whether you email that person or you call that person and be able to try to extend that stay, great opportunity to be able to do that. Sorry, I lose my voice there a little bit. But pace reports are where it's all going to start. Pace reports were tip number 1. It's absolutely critical to understand your pace reports to be able to do that effectively and to really be able to make the decisions for everything else you're doing throughout your peak season. So to help you unpack that and understand that, as our next step takeaway from today, we're offering to do a free pace report consultation with the Q4 team. It's going to take an advanced look at your booking pace for June, July, and August. Talk about a few specific strategies for increasing rate if you're ahead of pace, or increasing bookings if you're behind pace, and you'll be able to get some personal questions answered one-on-one. So a great opportunity. A little bit of a disclaimer, not every PMS has accurate pace reports in them. So we'll do our best to get you this information, but not every PMS has active pace reports or good pace reports for us to be able to judge that off of. So if you want to take advantage of that opportunity, simply click yes on the poll that's on your screen there, If you're not interested in having us go through a PACE report with you, no big deal. Just click no. We don't necessarily care which one you click. We just like to get everybody to vote in the poll so we can keep things moving along. So if you're still with us and you didn't run to the coffee machine or run to the wine dispenser, Catherine, if that's you, I know you're at the wine dispenser. And that wine dispenser is actually a little joke there. I know most of you are like too highbrow for wine dispensers, but but definitely just click yes or no. Wanted to talk to you about the second opportunity, which is something we've never done before, and see if that's something that might be of interest to you as well. So we're going to go ahead and get this poll closed out. Need a few more people to vote for to let us close this poll out. So if you haven't voted and you're at your computer, please click either yes or no to whether you want to engage with us on that PACE report. Again, totally free. Just something to help you think about your peak season and whether you need to make some changes in your strategy. Either changes like increased rate or changes like get more aggressive with marketing headed into your peak season. All right, so we're going to close that out and get our next poll here ready to launch. And this is kind of that unique opportunity, something that we've never done before, but something that we're excited about the opportunity to do. And that's requesting more information on our peak season marketing package. So we know many of you, based on the things we've talked about today and the strategies that we've talked about today, could use help with your peak season. We talked about there's some extra effort that needs to be put in from a marketing perspective in this peak season to make sure you get the most of it and have a great peak season. So what you're doing here by responding to this poll is essentially saying, hey, I'd be interested if Q4 Launch was going to offer something like that. I'd love to learn a little bit more about it. This wouldn't be a free offer. This would be us actually doing marketing for you as a paid service provider, really implementing basically what we've taught you today how to do. We don't have all those details fleshed out. We wanted to kind of see who was interested in that. So if you're interested in that, we'll follow up with more information on what that would look like. But it'd be a 3-month engagement with us to do marketing to make sure you have the absolute best peak season that you can have and get the most revenue out of these coming 3 months that you can. So June, July, and August, and then helping create that strategy is going to set you up going into the fall. So if you're interested in that, click yes, please get in touch. You're not committing to doing it by clicking yes. You're just saying you want more information. If you're not interested in that, no big deal. Just click no, thank you. But something we were excited, again, every marketing contract we've ever signed has a 12-month commitment. So this would be the first time we've ever offered anything with a 3-month commitment, but thought there was a cool opportunity to help some people get the most out of their peak season and implement what they learned on today's webinar. So click yes if you'd like to take advantage of that. Click no if you wouldn't. We're going to get into our Q&A here in just a few minutes. I've seen that chat bubble blinking at me throughout our conversation, so hopefully we're going to dive in and answer some questions for you guys here. So let's go ahead and get that set up and get our Q&A time going. All right. If you didn't get a chance to click yes or no on either of those two polls, but you're watching the recording quickly after we send it out, I'll have my contact information on the screen here momentarily so that you can get in touch with us directly. Just email us. We'd be happy to get in touch with you directly to be able to answer some of those questions for you. All right. So let's get into these questions. A question here from Bob. What are the best places to use for pay-per-click? TripAdvisor, Google? Great question, Bob. We have seen some of the best success with pay-per-click come from Google, TripAdvisor, and Bing. I would say those are kind of the top 3 that we look at. We've seen a lot of money wasted doing social media. Pay-per-click doesn't mean it would be wasted for you, doesn't mean it can't work for you. But typically speaking, that's an area we would invest money in after we got all the others working really, really well. And if you still had budget, you wanted to push towards something. But we typically see lower ROI on social ads in this case. So that would be my recommendations: Google, Bing, and TripAdvisor. Question here from Heather. Historically, it appears that timeline between date of booking and first day of reservation, or what we call the booking window, is getting shorter, which means that using PACE report to forecast future demand doesn't yield much information. Suggestions in that case: my current PACE shows flat for reservations, but up for revenue. We're practicing yield management. Thanks. I would say that there's not a big enough shift, Heather, in booking windows across the industry as a whole to make PACE reports irrelevant. Well, all revenue managers, I should say, PACE report is probably their #1 tool. And revenue managers of large hotels that just do revenue management and work with PACE reports full time. So yes, booking windows do change from year to year for various reasons. And you need to analyze those things together, which is why we spoke about both those things. If you're seeing your booking window shrinking as you're speaking to, you need to factor that into pace report. But if you're seeing, if you're behind pace when you add the factor of your booking window, then you probably got something to think a little bit more aggressively about there. So hopefully that's helpful, but I wouldn't abandon pace reports just because you feel like your booking window is changing. A couple questions on, is this being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded, and we will send a copy to everyone who has registered for today's webinar. It's the only way to get access to those. A couple questions about some specific PMS functionality. I honestly don't know. There's so many PMSs and there's so much functionality. I can't answer all the questions about certain functionality in certain PMSs. Some of them I can, but the questions specifically asked in here, I don't know the answers to. So if you had a question about the specific functionality with a specific PMS, I would encourage you to message your PMS provider and see if that's a feature that they have. Is it possible to get a link to the recording of the Millennials webinar you mentioned? Absolutely. Yeah, we'd be happy to get you a link of that. Actually, if you'll email me with the email address on the screen and let me know, that would be great. Because the chances that I track down your email and find that and get all that done and remember to do that as I head into my next meeting immediately after this are not super high. But happy to get you a copy of that. If you'd like a copy of our Millennial Marketing Panel webinar that we did just a few weeks ago, you can email me on the screen there and I'll get a link of that sent over to you. So with that, that's all of our questions in today's chat panel. Stay tuned. We're going to have 2 webinars coming at you in June, which we're excited about. One of my colleagues is going to be teaching those. We're really excited to share some great information from her with you. Look forward to those. Watch your inbox. As always, if there's anything we can do to help you, if you're trying to leverage your own marketing, if you need website support, if you need a new website, love to talk to you about those things. We hope today's information was very valuable as you're headed into peak season and thinking about how do I get the most out of it? How do I maximize the season I'm headed into? But if there's anything we can do, please get in touch with us with the information on the screen. We'd love to work with you or talk about what it might look like to work with you. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.